Today is December 30th, 2014, and I am going to continue with a description of the kinds of rape that the government and their employees were inflicting upon me, basically in decades of gang rape against me and torture to facilitate it, and then to try to make it look like they weren't guilty later. And before I go into more of the Ballingers and the Bechtold's connection and what kinds of triggers that were used by Robin Bechtold for some of the things he did, and before continuing to describe the next form of rape he used against me, I did write some things out on a board, my dry erase board, and some people are more visual, so it just helps sometimes to look at something and be able to read it. And there's a lot of information on this, so I'm not quite sure how much you can read, but I'm going to just kind of hold this here. And this is, and then I will describe some of it. So, what I have here is, okay, so here I wrote second and third generation government gang rapists, includes torture, binding, hostage, holding, and electrocution. And then the individuals that I'm mentioning kind of as the third generation, and then going back and describing the history that went behind it. Robin Bechtold, Mike Tanzer, Josh Gatov, just to start. That's not everybody at all, but those are a few. And then over here I have Robin George Bechtold and his family chart, because it shows how many members of his family were involved in assault of me. His brother named Nathan and a sister named Eliza. Put her name in a different color because she did not sexually molest me or try to molest me or rape me. And Nathan did try, although I don't remember actually doing anything with him, but he did attempt. Robin Bechtold did. His mother, Janet Bechtold, did. She did full, complete rape of me, and so did her husband, George Bechtold. And then here in black I have the place of their birth. I'm not quite sure about George, but areas that he was mainly in that I know of were was Washington and Oregon State. For Janet, she was mainly residing in California and Oregon. Her family is located in California. Where George Bechtold's family is, I'm not quite sure. Eliza's been in California and Oregon most of the time. Robin Bechtold's been in Texas, Oregon, and California. And Nathan has been in Oregon, I think, most of the time. Their traveling has included just things I know about, because I don't know all of it. But Nathan went to Northern Ireland many, many times. Robin Bechtold went to Australia many times. I don't know about Eliza. And as for George Bechtold, he frequently went to Brazil and to other parts of South America. Janet went to different parts of the European Union. Also, Nathan and Robin went to the European Union, like to England and Ireland and some places, and they've been overseas there. But she's been to the European Union areas. Africa, I know her mother has been to Africa with her friends, and South America. So the kinds of weapons that were used in facilitating some of this organized gang rape against me doesn't mean that each of these weapons were used every time for the individual rapes by these men here and some of the groups, but they were frequently used. They were not just like one time used, and it's wasn't like one time, it was many, many times that many of these different kinds of weapons, forms of physical assault, military weapons, and other things, items, were used. So, weapons used included guns loaded, knives and razors, hydrochloric acid, electrical mechanical tools. That means automotive tools that were electric that could be used to torture people, and also homemade devices that were electrical, and some kind of government devices that I believe were built specifically for electrocution. Pliers, and wrenches, switches, as in tree switches, willow switches, and other kinds of switches, like whips, chains, handcuffs, drugs and tranquilizers, rat poison, and mothballs. Flashlights. Flashlights were used to blind me, so sometimes if someone was assaulting me, they'd shine a light into my eye while the one person was assaulting me or doing something, so I couldn't see them. And fire, used to burn me or to get something hot so they could brand me or do something, and hot wax. And other props, duct tape was almost always used because I would scream, and they duct taped my mouth. They put socks or cloth and different materials in my mouth, and then they duct taped my mouth and then tortured me. Socks, rags, cotton balls, washcloths, condoms, and salt. Salt was used to facilitate a stronger electrical shock against me. It was used mostly with my skin being wet, so they would wetten my skin and have some sort of saline solution. They also used salt of some kind when they were doing some kind of a burn or putting some kinds of electrodes on my body, and when they'd take them off because of the reaction that they would have with the salt, they would turn different colors, and I'd have round spots that were kind of rust colored or sometimes green colored, and I mostly remember like a rust colored spots all over, or greenish colored spots all over. And maybe some people who are chemists would know why that is. So, and then military weapons included ultrasound, infrared, microwave, sonar, operations done to me, and these operations and some of the assault against me, frequently before and after, they would use PET scans, PET scans, to identify parts of my brain that they were trying to alter and affect. MRI, full body MRIs were done multiple times. X-rays were constantly being done to me. I didn't include it here, but also STD testing was used on me, and it wasn't used to protect me. It was used to protect their government rapists who kept raping me, because in a couple of the planned rapes, they did not use condoms, and they wanted to make sure that their people didn't contract anything. And I personally don't have any STDs, and I've never put myself at any kind of risk for having any. The only thing that I remember having on a frequent basis because of getting raped by these government people, or having their fingers inside of me and that kind of thing, was yeast infections, because of most of them were promiscuous individuals as well as criminal, and or they deliberately wanted to infect me. So then magnetic is another form of technology that was used to assault me. I was also targeted with shrapnel. at one time and had a couple shrapnel pieces in my body, which they basically removed like they were splinters or something. But I did have shrapnel before, and I was shot at, and I did have a bullet dug out of my body. And then I guess I didn't include in some of the poisons and various things like tasers. I didn't include tear gas and use of chlorine fumes, toxic chlorine fumes, because chlorine was being used on a really frequent basis to cause me to become dizzy, and I'd black out, I'd pass out from it. And I don't really know exactly what their full aim was, if they were trying to do brain damage with it or what, but they would pour chlorine across an entire floor in a small room and then lock the room in with no ventilation and make me stay in there. And so that's just to start, and that is, I will hopefully be able to then maybe I'll erase some of this information here, but then start connecting some of the individuals and who was connected to who, because I was getting trafficked between Washington and Oregon State a lot, also California, and that's not the only place in the U.S. I was being sent all over, but most of the time the frequent, constant assault and training of me to not resist being raped was being done in Washington, Oregon State. So, and then overseas. So that's a little bit for right now, and the next clip that I make, I will continue with some of the triggers that Robin was using to facilitate his rape of me in the car when I was in high school.